CW Thoughts by Howard, WB2UZE.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. And I thought I would continue here in the LICW instructors meeting, every time we meet and talk about a few things that are important to me, and I'd like to pass them down to you. And I'd like to preface this, as I always do, that the things I'll be telling you here are really my personal opinions and experience, and it's not meant to force these ideas or change anybody's mind. It's basically just to share with you in a meeting such as this, where we have many important people from the club, some things that I think are important when it comes to operating CW and techniques. So there's three things I'd like to cover tonight, and I'd like to start off with errors. What do you do if you make a mistake, and how should it be handled? Some of you might have heard me talk about this and others before, but I would never send a series of dots if I made a mistake. It's really not necessary. Everybody makes mistakes when they send, and if this mistake you think is very fatal, all you really have to do is repeat the word. But even if you didn't, most people would be able to understand what you're sending, whether they're head copying or they're writing down by hand. And just to prove this a little bit, some of you might have seen this particular paragraph, but I'd like to share it with you. Ant, you want to bring that up, the one with the errors in it? So why don't you read this, where just about every single word is misspelled. Now, your mind is really correcting this, and you're able to read it. According to a research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order, etc., etc. Now, let's say this is what you copied down in CW, because you made mistakes copying, or the other fellow made mistakes sending, or there was QRM or QSB. You would still get the gist if it came out like this. So why would you have to send a string of dots to call the attention to any particular error? So I just wanted to share that with you. Once in a while, if I really think it's important to call the attention to mistake, I'll send 2 dots twice. Did it? That's a very professional way. But the best way is just to stop and repeat the word again. And if you think the word is very important anyhow, and you want to accentuate it, there's no problem in repeating it twice. Okay, the next thing I wanted to speak a bit about was how to save your call sign if the other station doesn't have it correct, especially in a DX pileup. That's called a busted call. So what do you do? Now, my call being WB2UZE, before I was running a linear, that E used to disappear all the time for years. It was maddening. And it was kind of made harder when we had, all different type of call signs coming up that you could get by applying, for the vanity call. But it used to be, when I was younger, that a 3x3 call or a WB2 always had a UZE, always had 3 letters. There was no such thing as a WB2UZE. There was no such thing as a WA2 with 2 letters after it. Today there is. So you knew back then that you were missing something, but that's not the case anymore. So what do you do if a person misses your call sign? Let's say with my call sign, the last letter. The worst thing to do is to send your call sign again and again, because that doesn't tell the receiver what's wrong. So if someone doesn't have my call sign right, I would just go UZE. And then when I get to the E, I keep sending the E. Did. Then I'll go back and do the whole call sign. And then if I really have to keep stressing it, if I came back again, he still doesn't have it, I'll just keep sending UZE. Because if he has a WB2, you don't want him to think there's something wrong with that. Now, a strategy like this doesn't always work because it depends on the skill of the operator. But if the operator is skilled, he would really know what you're trying to accentuate. What do you do in a pileup? What do you do in a pileup? What you can't do if the call sign has been received wrong is correct it and then give your signal report. Because the DX station might not be hearing you, there might be QRM, or he might not be paying attention. You got to realize this guy's tired too. Once he hears a signal report, he's assuming that he got your call sign right. And then he's going to disappear and you're never going to get him back. So if you're going to correct a busted call in a pileup, you do your best to correct it like I told you before, and you don't give this signal report and you go back to him. Then he's going to know there's something wrong with your call. And then he'll either have it right or wrong. If it's still wrong, you're going to have to go back and fight to save it. And it'll be getting tougher and tougher because rude people are going to start transmitting on top of you like there's blood in the water. So it's best to try and correct it correctly right in the get-go. The last thing I wanted to talk about was QRL. QRL. What does it mean? Is the frequency in use? Do I use this? Never. Now you might say, am I going to be transmitting on somebody's frequency? Why wouldn't Howard use QRL? Isn't that the polite thing to do? Let me tell you my thoughts on this. I have spoken really against the crutch that people use today with SDR radios that show you the signals and you tune for the signal that you see on the screen rather than listening to the band and understanding the band. Where the DX is, where the POTA guys are, where the SOTA guys are, where FT8 starts, where are the high-speed guys, where are the slow-speed guys. If you really know the band by tuning it, and tuning it quickly, up and down, up and down, and up and down, you get a pulse and a feel for it. Now, in the first 25 kc of the CW bands, that's really the extra portion. That's where the fastest operators are. That's where the DX is. That's where speeds are above 20 words a minute. If you listen to a frequency that sounds clear, because of the speed of the QSO, you will know about how much time you should wait before you call CQ. It shouldn't be any more than about 15 seconds. You can start calling CQ. We talked about that the other day. You call a 3x3, but you have your break-in on so that you're listening to the frequency. And if somebody just happens to pop up in the middle of your CQ, you stop right there. Above 25 on the band, the speeds are slower and it's more crowded and the operators aren't as experienced. So you have to listen longer on the frequency before you call a CQ. I think calling a QRL could be more invasive if there's a contact happening on that frequency already. And most operators, if they're not experienced, if they hear a QRL, what are they going to say? Yes? No? I'm using the frequency. They're going to hope the other guy's going to not call CQ. Most guys call QRL and they call CQ right after that anyhow. I'm sure you've heard this. So it goes to understanding the band, understanding the speeds of the QSO, and the listening. That's what I wanted to say about QRL. So to end this, many of us use keyers. And, you know, if you use a keyer for an hour or so, even though it's a lot easier on your hand and your wrist than a straight key, you can get tired, and some of us being older might have a little problems with our knuckles and joints and this and that. And there are alternatives I wanted to bring to your attention. You want to play this, Ant? This is my favorite guy, OH6DC, and he's sending with his feet. He said, if you have feet, use them. Perfect CW, not even an error. So there are alternatives for you guys who want to get away from keyers. That's it for me tonight, Quentin. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'm all ears.